Open with a specific, named, former Mega Millions insider, call her Sarah, who, after years of processing winning tickets, noticed a pattern she couldn't ignore. She watched hundreds of winners come through and started logging what they did in the days and weeks before their wins. The act establishes her credibility years inside the system. Exact numbers of tickets she processed, creates immediate curiosity, what did she see, and drops the first ritual with a vivid case study. A retired postal worker named David who did one specific thing every single morning for 11 months before winning 47 million. Sensory detail, the fluorescent hum of the processing center, the weight of the tickets in her hands. Contrast, the dull routine of her job versus the life-changing moment, a ticket becomes worth millions. Foreshadowing, Sarah hints that the rituals aren't about luck, they're about something deeper, and by the end, the viewer will understand why. Tease. But ritual number 1 is nothing compared to what number 6 did, and that one is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about winning. This act delivers 4 rituals in rapid succession, each with its own named case study and precise detail. Ritual 2, a woman named Karen who bought tickets only on days it rained won 12 million. Ritual 3, a man named Greg who always bought his ticket at the same gas station at exactly side him, 14 AM won 88 million. Ritual 4, a couple named the Petersons who wrote down what they would do with the money before every single ticket purchase for 8 months straight won 203 million. Ritual 5, a teenager named Marcus who listened to the same song on repeat while filling out his ticket won 31 million. Each ritual is presented with the "but here's why this actually matters." Pivot tying the behavior back to psychological or behavioral science. Focus, intention, routine, emotional state. The act uses contrast between how ridiculous each ritual sounds and how seriously the winners treated it. Escalating dollar amounts build momentum. Mid-act subscribe hook buried inside Karen's story. Tease at the end, rituals 6 through 8, are where it gets uncomfortable because these aren't just habits. According to Sarah, these are the rituals that insiders themselves started copying. ACT Tshi, the rituals insiders don't want you to know. Ritual 6 Oshim, the dark, surprising turn. The tone shifts here. Sarah reveals that rituals 6, Sidam, and Oshim aren't just winner habits, they're patterns she and other employees noticed so consistently that some of them started doing them personally. Ritual 6. Winners almost never told anyone they were playing seriously. A man named Richard played in complete silence for 14 months. Told no one, won 156 million. Ritual Sidam. Winners bought in specific quantities, not 1 ticket, not 10, but exactly 3 tickets per drawing. Never more, never less. Sarah explains why focus, not volume. Ritual Oshim. Every single major winner Sarah tracked did something the night before they visualized the moment of finding out, in detail, for at least 10 minutes. Not casually, deliberately. This act uses the insider confession technique. Sarah, admitting she started doing Ritual Oshim herself, creates trust and makes the information feel exclusive. Emotional gut punch. Sarah describes watching a woman named Linda, who had been playing for 3 years with 0 wins, finally hit 74 million. And the only thing that changed in the final month was that Linda started doing rituals 6, 7, and Oshim all at once. Tease. But rituals 9 and 10, especially 10 Sarah, almost didn't tell me about. She said there's a reason lottery insiders keep these 2 quiet. And when you hear what they are, you'll understand why. Ritual 9. Winners chose their numbers using a method tied to deeply personal, meaning not random, not quick pick. Dates, addresses, moments. A man named James used only the numbers from his late mother's birthday and the day his daughter was born, won 421 million. This ritual is presented with the emotional weight of why personal meaning matters. Ritual 10, the final reveal. Sarah explains that every single major winner she ever processed, without exception, played consistently over a long period, months, sometimes years, without ever stopping, without ever skipping a drawing they committed to. No winner got lucky overnight. The ritual wasn't a trick. It was patience and consistency. And it's the one ritual most people are unwilling to do. This lands as both a revelation and a gut punch. Sarah's closing statement, she watched thousands of tickets come through, and the ones that changed lives were never the ones bought in desperation or on a whim. They were the ones bought by people who had already decided in their minds that they were going to win. Emotional close. The story of a man named Walter who played every single week for 22 months, did every ritual, and on the night he finally won 9 million. He didn't scream or celebrate, he just sat in his car in the parking lot and cried because he'd believed it would happen, and it did. And with a final call to action and a callback to the opening hook. A former Mega Millions employee spent 6 years processing winning tickets, and she kept a secret the entire time. She watched hundreds of people become millionaires overnight, and she noticed something about almost every single one of them that nobody ever talks about. So, what is the one thing that all 10 of these lottery winners did before they hit the jackpot, and why doesn't anyone inside the lottery want you to know about it? Sarah Chen had seen exactly 2,847 winning tickets pass through her hands in 6 years. She knew the weight of one. She knew the way the paper felt between her fingers when she peeled it off the scanner tray at .0 in the morning under the long white lights of the processing center in Trenton, New Jersey. The room hummed. It always hummed. The machines never stopped, not even on holidays. She stood at her station for 8 hours a day, feeding tickets into scanners, watching numbers flash green or red on the screen above her. Most days, everything was red. But sometimes, not very often, a number turned green. And when it did, Sarah would watch what happened next, because that is when things got interesting. She started keeping a notebook in the spring of her 3rd year, not because anyone told her to, not because it was her job. She just started noticing things, a pattern, something she could not shake. She wrote down everything she could, the names on the tickets, the dates, the amounts, and when she could find out, she wrote down what the winners had done before they won. It took her 2 more years to get enough data to feel sure, and by the time she was sure, she had filled 4 notebooks. The first ritual on her list belonged to a man named David. David was 58 years old. He was a postal worker from a small town called Bordentown, about 30 minutes south of Trenton. He had worked for the post office for 22 years. He wore the same blue jacket every single day. He bought his ticket at the same gas station every Friday morning at exactly 6:45. But that is not what Sarah wrote down. What she wrote down was what David did before he even got to the gas station. Every single morning for 11 months straight, David woke up at 5:15. He sat in his kitchen in the dark and he drank 1 cup of black coffee while he looked out the window at his backyard. That was it. No phone, no TV, no talking, just the coffee and the quiet and the dark sky turning lighter by the minute. Sarah found this out because after David won $47 million, he gave one interview to a local newspaper. And in that interview, he said the morning coffee was the most important part of his life. He said it was the only time of day when his mind was completely still. No noise, no worry. Just him and the coffee and the morning. Sarah underlined that part 3 times. She did not know yet why it mattered, but she felt it. She felt that it was connected to something bigger, something that went beyond luck. And she wrote at the top of her first notebook in big letters that she could see every time she opened it, "The rituals are not about luck. They are about something else." But she did not know what that something else was. Not yet. That would come later. And when it did, it would change the way she understood everything she had seen in that processing center. She closed the notebook and slid it into the drawer under her bed. Outside, it was raining. The kind of cold, quiet rain that makes the whole world feel very small and very still. And somewhere across town, a woman named Karen was buying a lottery ticket for the 43rd time in a row on a rainy day. Sarah did not know Karen yet, but she would. Karen bought her tickets only when it rained. This was not something she planned. It was not something she told anyone about. It just happened. The first time was an accident. She was walking home from the grocery store one Tuesday in March when the sky opened up without any warning at all. She ducked into the nearest store, which happened to sell lottery tickets, and bought one just to have something to do while she waited for the rain to stop. She won $40. Not a lot, but enough to notice. After that, every time it rained, Karen bought a ticket. She did this for 2 years and 4 months. Most of the time, she won nothing. Sometimes she won small amounts, $10 here, $20 there, but she kept going every single rainy day. And then, on a Thursday in November, when the rain was coming down so hard you could barely see the road, Karen bought her ticket and won $12 million. Sarah found Karen's story in a regional news article and added it to her notebook right away. But Karen was not the strangest one. That was Greg. Greg was 44 years old and lived in a town called Morristown. He owned a small hardware store. Every single morning, Greg drove to a gas station on Route Chetam-Deschamps. He did not buy gas. He bought exactly one lottery ticket. And he did it at exactly 7:14 in the morning. Not 7:15, not 7:10, 7:14. He had been doing this for 8 months when he won $88 million. When Sarah read Greg's story, she wrote a single word in her notebook: precision. There was something about the way these people locked into a routine that felt important. Like the routine itself was doing something inside their heads that they could not see but that showed up in the end. The Petersons were next. Tom and Linda Peterson were a married couple in their early 50s. They lived in a small house outside of Cherry Hill. Every single time they bought a lottery ticket, before they even looked at the numbers they had chosen, they sat down together at their kitchen table and wrote on a piece of paper exactly what they would do if they won. Not big dreams, specific things. Linda would fix the roof, Tom would pay off the truck, they would take their grandkids to see the ocean for the first time. They did this for 8 months straight. 211 drawings, 211 pieces of paper, and then they won $203 million. Sarah read their story and felt something shift inside her chest. This was not just routine, this was intention. These people were not just hoping, they were preparing. The last ritual in this group belonged to Marcus. Marcus was only 19 years old. He was a college student who worked part-time at a movie theater. He did not have much money, but every week he bought one ticket. And every single time he filled out that ticket, he put his earbuds in and listened to the same song on repeat. The same song every time. He said it helped him focus. He said it made everything else disappear. He did this for 6 months, and then he won $31 million. Sarah looked at all 4 of these stories side by side in her notebook. A rainy day, a precise time, a written plan, a song. None of it made any logical sense. And yet, every single one of these people had done their ritual with complete seriousness. Not as a joke, not as a superstition, as a real important part of their process. And Sarah started to wonder if the ritual was not the point at all. If what really mattered was what the ritual was doing inside the mind of the person doing it. She wrote that thought down too. And she underlined it twice. Sarah almost did not share rituals 6, 7, and 8. She told me later that these were the ones that made her nervous, not because they were strange, because they were too consistent. Every single major winner she had tracked over 6 years followed all 3 of these rituals, and she had started to wonder if the pattern was too strong to be coincidence. Ritual number 6 was about silence. Richard was a man in his early 60s who lived alone in a small apartment in Burlington. He had no family nearby, no close friends that anyone knew about. He played the lottery every single week for 14 months, and he told absolutely no one. Not his neighbor, not his coworker at the warehouse where he loaded trucks, not a single living person knew that Richard was playing or that Richard wanted to win. Sarah found this out only after Richard won $156 million and the local paper ran his story. In the interview, Richard said something that Sarah wrote down word for word. He said that telling people would have ruined it. He said that the moment you tell someone, the dream becomes theirs too, and then it is not yours anymore. Sarah looked back through her notebooks after reading Richard's story. She checked every major winner she had recorded, and she found that almost all of them had kept their playing completely private until after they won. It was not superstition, it was protection. The dream stayed clean and whole inside their own mind because nobody else was touching it. Ritual number 7 was about the number of tickets. Sarah had noticed this one early but did not understand it at first. Major winners almost never bought one ticket, and they almost never bought 10 or 20, hoping that more chances meant a better outcome. They bought exactly 3. 3 tickets per drawing. No more, no less. Sarah talked to 2 former coworkers about this, and one of them, a woman named Diane, who had worked in the processing center for 11 years, said she had noticed the same thing. Diane said she believed 3 tickets was the point where your mind could still hold on to each one. If you bought 20 tickets, your focus got split into 20 pieces. But 3 was small enough to think about each one individually. Each ticket could have its own meaning, its own weight. Sarah started doing ritual number 7 herself after that conversation. She bought exactly 3 tickets the next drawing. Ritual number 8 was the hardest one to believe at first. Every single major winner Sarah had ever processed, without one exception, had done something specific the night before they won. They visualized it, not casually, not the way you daydream about something while watching TV. They sat down, closed their eyes, and spent at least 10 minutes seeing the moment, seeing themselves find out, seeing the numbers match, seeing what came next. Sarah learned about this ritual from Linda Chen, no relation to Sarah. Linda was a woman who had played the lottery for 3 full years with 0 wins. Then one month, something changed. Linda started doing all 3 rituals at once. The silence, the 3 tickets, and the 10 minutes of visualization the night before every drawing. 6 weeks later, Linda won $74 million. Sarah spoke to Linda after the win and asked her why she had finally started doing those things. Linda said a friend had mentioned the visualization idea in passing, and Linda had decided to take it seriously for the first time. She said the 10 minutes felt strange at first, uncomfortable even. But after a few nights, it started to feel like the most real part of her week. More real than waking up, more real than going to work. It felt like she was practicing for something that had already been decided. Sarah wrote that phrase down and stared at it for a long time. Already been decided. She did not fully understand what Linda meant, but she knew it mattered. And she knew that rituals 9 and 10, the final 2 on her list, were connected to it in a way she was not yet ready to explain. Ritual number 9 almost broke Sarah's heart the first time she understood it. James was a quiet man, 41 years old, who lived in a rented house on a street lined with old oak trees in a town called Pennsauken. He had lost his mother when he was 12 years old. It was the kind of loss that does not go away. It just changes shape over the years until it becomes part of the way you see everything. James played the lottery every single week. And every single time he filled out his ticket, he used the same numbers. His mother's birthday, the month, the day, and the year she was born, and the date his daughter Emma was born. He combined those numbers in different ways across his tickets, but they were always the same numbers. Always. He had been doing this for 9 months when he won $421 million. Sarah found out about James through a friend of a friend who worked at the same gas station where James bought his tickets. The story spread fast in the area after the win. When Sarah added James to her notebook, she sat with it for a while before she wrote anything down. She understood something about ritual number 9 that she had not fully seen before. The numbers were not random. They were not chosen for any mathematical reason. They were chosen because they meant something. They were chosen because every time James looked at them, he felt something real. He felt his mother. He felt his daughter. The ticket was not just a piece of paper with numbers on it. It was a small, quiet act of love. And Sarah began to think that this was why the rituals worked. Not because of any magic or trick, but because they turned the act of playing into something that mattered, something personal, something that connected the player to a reason bigger than money. But ritual number 10 was the one that Sarah almost did not share at all. She told me she spent 3 weeks deciding whether to talk about it. Not because it was a secret exactly, because it was so simple that most people would laugh at it. And because it was the one ritual that every single major winner had followed without exception, and it was also the one ritual that most people were completely unwilling to do, ritual number 10 was consistency. That was it. Every major winner Sarah had ever processed played regularly over a long period of time, months, sometimes years. They did not play once and hope. They did not play when they felt lucky. They committed to a schedule and they stuck to it, drawing after drawing, week after week, no matter what. No skipping, no quitting after a bad streak, no giving up when the money felt tight or the hope felt thin. They just kept going. Sarah said this was the hardest ritual for people to accept because it required something that most people do not want to give. It required patience, real patience, the kind that does not feel good in the moment, the kind that asks you to keep doing something even when nothing seems to be happening. The story that stayed with Sarah the longest was Walter's. Walter was 63 years old. He lived alone in a small house with a dog named Pete. He had played the lottery every single week for 22 months. He did every ritual. He kept it quiet. He bought 3 tickets. He visualized the night before. He used numbers that meant something to him, and he never once skipped a drawing. On the night Walter won $89 million, he did not scream. He did not call anyone. He drove to the gas station where he had bought the ticket and sat in his car in the parking lot for 40 minutes. Pete was in the back seat, tail wagging, not understanding anything except that his owner was breathing fast and his eyes were wet. Walter cried, not because he was shocked, not because he could not believe it. He cried because he had believed it. He had believed it the whole time, through every single week of nothing, through every single drawing that came back empty. He had believed it was coming, and it did. Sarah closed her notebooks for the last time after she wrote Walter's story down. She had spent 6 years watching people become millionaires. She had filled pages and pages with names and numbers and rituals. And in the end, the secret was not a trick, it was not a hack, it was not something only certain people could do. It was the decision to keep going. The decision to show up again and again and to believe quietly and completely that the moment was coming. Walter sat in that parking lot until the sky turned dark and the streetlights came on. Then he drove home, walked through his front door, and sat down in his chair with Pete at his feet. And for the first time in 22 months, he did not think about the next drawing. He just sat there, and he was still